The Untold History of Australia, an unfiltered journey through time. Australia, a land of breathtaking landscapes and extraordinary diversity, holds an equally fascinating and complex history. Often misunderstood or oversimplified, it's a story that spans tens of thousands of years, shaped by the resilience of the first peoples, the upheaval of colonisation, and the defining struggles and triumphs of a growing nation. In this documentary, we uncover the complete, unvarnished story of Australia, exploring its ancient origins, turbulent transformations, and enduring journey toward identity and reconciliation. Long before humanity set foot on its soil, Australia began its story hundreds of millions of years ago. Once part of the supercontinent Gondwana, this ancient landmass split off during the early Jurassic period, slowly drifting into isolation. The result was a unique and isolated ecosystem, home to countless endemic species such as kangaroos, koalas, and the platypus. Its arid landscapes, vast deserts, and iconic coasts were shaped by prehistoric tectonic forces and climate changes, creating a continent unlike any other on Earth. Australia's natural history serves as the bedrock for its human history, preparing the land to host one of the longest continuous cultures on the planet, the Aboriginal Australians. Over 65,000 years ago, the first peoples arrived on the shores of Australia, their journey likely aided by ancient land bridges and primitive seafaring techniques. They brought with them a profound connection to the natural world, creating complex societal systems and traditions rooted in the land itself. The Dreamtime, central to Aboriginal spirituality, tells the creation stories of the earth and its features, depictions of ancestral spirits shaping the land, rivers, and mountains. This spiritual and cultural framework transcended generations, forming the foundation for some of the richest oral histories and artistic traditions in human history. Aboriginal Australians developed advanced techniques for living sustainably, cultivating fire stick farming practices to manage vegetation and maintain biodiversity. Their impeccable knowledge of astronomy, navigation, and mathematics was expressed through rock art, ceremonial songs, and sacred sites that resonate to this day. Their connection to the land was not just physical, but deeply spiritual. Every tree, river, and mountain carried a meaning, a memory, or a teaching, a bond that would later be threatened by the arrival of European settlers. The first recorded glimpse of Australia by Europeans occurred in the 17th century, when Dutch traders sighted its northern coasts. They named the land New Holland, though no attempts at settlement followed. It wasn't until 1770, during Captain James Cook's famed voyage of discovery, that the British laid official claim to the eastern coast of Australia, naming it New South Wales. Cook and his crew's encounter with the Aboriginal peoples marked an early cultural crossroads, though the implications of this meeting would not be fully realised until colonisation began in earnest. The vast and resource-rich land had caught the attention of Britain, a nation looking for new opportunities after losing the American colonies. On January 26, 1788, the First Fleet, carrying British convicts, soldiers and settlers, arrived at Botany Bay under the command of Governor Arthur Phillip. This marked the establishment of Australia as a penal colony for Britain's overflowing prisons. Sydney Cove became the first settlement, and the surrounding land became the fledgling colony of New South Wales. Over time, more colonies were established as Britain expanded its foothold across the continent. Settlement brought widespread environmental changes, transforming the land for agriculture and infrastructure. However, beneath the development lay a darker reality: the brutal and often inhumane treatment of the Aboriginal peoples who had called this land home for more than 65,000 years. British colonisation wrought catastrophic consequences for the Aboriginal peoples of Australia. The introduction of European diseases decimated indigenous populations who had no immunity to illnesses like smallpox. Their lands, once a sacred lifeline, were seized for farming and settlement, leading to widespread displacement. Conflict erupted as Aboriginal peoples resisted the encroachment of settlers and attempts to erase their culture. Violent skirmishes and massacres became frequent, and the dispossession deepened as colonial policies systematically removed Aboriginal people from their lands, Despite the odds, many communities persisted, their resilience a testament to their enduring ties to the continent. In the mid-19th century, a discovery changed the trajectory of Australia's development, the discovery of gold. The Australian gold rush began in 1851, attracting a surge of fortune seekers, immigrants, and investment to the young colonies. Towns sprang up almost overnight, and vast fortunes were made as people from across the globe sought a share of the riches. The gold rush was transformative, not only economically but socially. It spurred broader initiatives for infrastructure, trade, and education, laying the foundation for Australia's long-term growth. However, the wealth also deepened divisions, as many Aboriginal communities continued to endure displacement while white settlers prospered. On January 1st, 1901, Australia underwent one of the most significant moments in its history, the federation of its 6 colonies into the Commonwealth of Australia. United politically, the new nation sought to shape its identity while navigating the challenges of the modern world. However, this early period of nationhood was marred by racism and exclusion. The White Australia policy, enacted during Federation, enforced restrictive immigration practices and aimed to ensure a predominantly European population. The policy marginalised non-European immigrants and did little to address the rights or welfare of the First Peoples. Still, the foundation had been laid for Australia's evolution as a nation, not without its struggles, but with hope for progress. Australia entered the global stage during World War I, sending troops to fight alongside Britain. The Gallipoli campaign became a defining event, marking the birth of the ANZAC, Australian and New Zealand Army Corps, legend. Despite the heavy losses, the campaign fostered a sense of unity and national pride. In World War II, Australia again played a pivotal role, particularly in the Pacific Theatre. The war years brought significant changes, including a post-war immigration boom and industrial growth. Soldiers returning home found an Australia beginning to embrace multiculturalism, spurred on by waves of immigrants seeking a new life. While Australia grew, the nation had yet to confront its greatest injustice, the treatment of its First Peoples. Colonisation and systemic racism left Aboriginal Australians marginalised, their cultures and communities under constant threat. The infamous stolen generations saw Aboriginal children forcibly taken from their families between the late 19th and mid-20th centuries in an attempt to assimilate them into European culture. These practices left a legacy of trauma that persists in Indigenous communities today. However, the mid-20th century also witnessed the rise of Indigenous activism. The 1967 referendum was a landmark event, with Australians voting overwhelmingly to amend the Constitution to better include Aboriginal Australians in national policy making. Later, the Mabo decision in 1992 overturned the concept of terra nullius, the colonial-era lie that Australia was empty land prior to British settlement, and established the Native Title Act, recognising the continuing connection of Aboriginal Australians to their land. The modern era has seen Australia transform into a richly diverse, multicultural society. Immigration policies have shifted to welcome people from across the globe, contributing to the nation's cultural and economic vibrancy. At the same time, there has been an increased emphasis on grappling with historical injustices through reconciliation efforts. National Sorry Day, first held in 1998, acknowledges the hurt caused by the stolen generations. In recent years, calls for treaty making and constitutional recognition for Aboriginal Australians have intensified, reflecting the country's ongoing journey toward justice and equality. Australia's story is one of extremes, of ancient traditions and modern ambitions, of cultural resilience and immense challenges. Its history teaches us about the power of survival and the importance of understanding and learning from the past. As the nation continues to grow and evolve, this unfiltered history reminds us that Australia's identity is still taking shape. It is a story of reconciliation, hope, and resilience, written over millennia and still unfolding today. Through its triumphs and trials, Australia remains a land shaped by its people, its land, and its enduring spirit.